If a religion is true, it sets you free to be your true self. It nurtures loving kindness and generosity in your heart. It humbles you before the ultimate and before your neighbour. If a religion is true, it challenges your conscience and opens your mind. It makes you responsible for yourself and your world. It stirs you to seek the liberation and well-being of others. If a religion is true, it deepens your awareness and nourishes your spirit. It brings you comfort and strength in times of grief and trial. It connects you to other people and to the life of the universe. If a religion is true, it will care less for dogma and doctrine than it will for love. It will care less for rules and customs than it will for compassion. It will care less for the gods we make than the people we are. So as we gather together in community this morning, let ours be a true religion. These opening words by Cliff read, they welcome all those who have gathered for this morning's Sunday service. Welcome to those few here in person at Essex Church. Welcome to all who are joining us via Zoom from far and wide today. I suspect our numbers are slightly depleted because of the Women's World Cup final kicking off at 11 o'clock. Gold star to those of you that turned up regardless today. Whoever you are, however you are, wherever you are, you're welcome with us today, just as you are. And for anyone who doesn't know me, my name is Jane Blackall and I'm Minister with Kensington Unitarians. This morning's service has the intriguing title, Other People, the Jury's Still Out. Now I can say it's intriguing because I didn't make it up. Our theme today is courtesy of the Reverend Cody Coyne, who's Minister with Cross Street Unitarians in central Manchester. And it's his response to the well-known saying from Jean-Paul Sartre, hell is other people. Cody will be sharing his responses to that idea in a sermon later on via video. But before we go any further, let us take a moment to get ourselves settled and centred and ready to worship. This is an hour in which we can catch up with ourselves, be grounded and present. So just take a moment to breathe. Be here now, with your whole self in this beloved community as we attend to the life of the Spirit together. I'm going to light our chalice flame now, as I do each time we gather. It's a simple ritual that connects us in solidarity with Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists the world over, and it reminds us of the proudly progressive religious tradition of which this gathering is part. We are all capable in different ways with various strengths and talents. We are all holy, part of the universe and the interdependent web of life. So we light this chalice today, cherishing our differences and holding each other in sacredness. Time for us to sing now. Our first hymn is number 43 in the purple hymn book, Gather the Spirit. For those joining via Zoom, the words will be up on screen. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer as we sing, and do your best to sing up. I know we've got help from Margaret and Benjie today, but let's make the best noise we can. Gather the Spirit.
Amen.
Let's take all of those joys and concerns, both spoken and unspoken, into an extended time of prayer and reflection now. This is partly based on some words by Mandy McGlynn. You might want to adjust your position to get more comfortable, close your eyes, soften your gaze. If there's a posture that helps you to feel more prayerful, do whatever you need to do to get into the right state of body and mind for us to pray together now, to be fully present here and now with ourselves, each other, and that which is within us and beyond us. Spirit of life, God of all love, in whom we live and move and have our being, we turn our full attention to you, the light within and without, as we tune into the depths of this life and the greater wisdom to which and through which we are all intimately connected. Be with us now as we allow ourselves to drop into the silence and the stillness at the center of our being. We know so many stories about you. God, Father, Mother, Universe, Great Spirit, ground of our being, lover and beloved, source of all. We know so many stories about ourselves too, some of them the same stories we tell about others. Beautiful and ugly, simple and difficult, smart and foolish, useful and useless, stories about who we are, what we know, and the potentials and impossibilities of our future, stories about the purpose and the meaning of our lives. We carry countless stories buried deep in our souls, too deep for us to even recognize them. Help us find the strength to excavate those buried stories. Let us lean on one another as we brush them off, hold them to the light, and find their meaning and their use. Let us uncover the stories which rekindle hope and courage. In the trees and the wind, in the kind words of our neighbours, in the warmth of the sun and the gentle sound of falling rain, whisper to us the truest story you know, a truth we can never unhear. Remind us every day and each moment that we are beloved. And in a few moments of shared stillness now, let us call to mind all those people and situations who are on our hearts this morning, thinking of all those issues that concern us, whether close to home or in troubled places the world over. And let us hold them gently in loving kindness. And let us hold ourselves in loving kindness too, for each of us carries our own private burdens. Life is tough for many. We're all too aware of life's struggles and hardships. So let us rest in self-compassion as we each ask silently for what we need this day. And let us take a moment more to reflect on that week just gone in a spirit of gratitude. Let us notice and give thanks for all the blessings, large and small, that have helped to lift our spirits this week. maybe we can prepare our hearts to receive life's goodness in the week ahead. Spirit of life, God of all love, as this time of prayer draws to a close, we offer up our joys and our concerns, our hopes and our fears, our beauty and our brokenness. And we call on you for insight, healing, and renewal. As we look forward now to the coming week, help us to live well each day and be our best selves, using our unique gifts in the service of love, justice, and peace. Amen. Time to sing again now. The next hymn is number 11 in your purple hymn books, Blessed Spirit of My Life. This is one of my favourites, really lovely words. The words will be up on screen as usual. Feel free to stand or sit as you prefer. Blessed Spirit of My Life.
Have you heard of writer's block? When the words just won't come. When perhaps you say have an assignment, or maybe some fiction that you want to write, or let's say a sermon, and the words just won't come. Well, this is a story about a painter, and so she doesn't have writer's block. She has painter's block. She paints up in her attic. She has a beautiful window to let the light come through, but she just has no idea what to paint. She has her easel, and she has her paper, and she just stares at it. She has no idea. She tries different things to break the block. She tries meditating. She tries drinking cups of tea. She goes for walks. She tries doodling. All sorts of things that she knows people do that help them to be able to paint. But it doesn't work. Not for her, at least. Nothing works at all that day. And she's a bit upset by this. But in the afternoon, her niece comes to visit, and she loves visits from her niece because she comes in and she's so excited to see her auntie, and they just talk. They have great conversations about school and classes, all the sorts of hobbies and crafts that go on, and they eat some candies together. She'll take a candy, and her niece will take a candy. And they do that a little bit, and they share some of these wonderful sweets. and they just have a good time. So that's one day. The next day, it's the same thing. She wakes up, looks at the blank paper, nothing. Nothing comes to mind. She tries meditating. She tries drinking cups of tea. She goes for walks. She doodles. Nothing comes. No idea what to paint. She just stares at the easel. She's a bit upset, just like the day before. And just like the day before, her niece comes and lifts her spirits. She feels grateful and joyous when her niece comes by because they get to chat, they get to just see each other, learn about each other's days, and they get to share their sweeties. A couple for the auntie and a couple for the niece. But the niece is quite clever, and she's gathering that the auntie is upset, but won't talk about it. So she goes home, and she asks her mom for help. Auntie seems to be sad, and I want to find a way to make her happy. Not knowing, of course, that the aunt couldn't figure out what to paint. Well, the next day comes, and again it's the same thing. The blank sheet of paper, the teas, the walks, the doodles, the meditating, nothing works. The aunt is very sad by this point, and the niece comes. And the niece is very excited, and you think this will just uplift the aunt's spirit right away. And it does, because the niece says, I have a gift for you. I have made an art. And she has taken all of the sweetie wrappers, and with her mother's help, has encapsulated them in plastic and made this beautiful sort of little bit of artwork for her auntie. And her auntie loves it and thanks her. And she takes it up to the attic where her art studio is, and she puts it on the window. And they have, their lovely conversation. They share some more sweeties. They have good chats. And then the niece goes home for the day, and the aunt goes to sleep. The next morning, she's very worried because she's had several days without any sort of inspiration. She walks up the steps to see if she can have some idea of what to paint. And when she gets there, the sun is shining through the window. It's shining through the artwork onto the painting. And she can suddenly see what she wants to paint. Thank you.
So we're moving from Cody's story into a time of meditation now. Now, I'm going to share for meditation a poem by Benjamin Zephaniah, People Need People. I came across it online. I thought it fitted Cody's theme. I was charmed by it. But I was then delighted to find it had been published as a picture book. So I'm going to leave that around after the service if anyone wants to enjoy the full multi-sensory experience. But Zephaniah's poem will take us into about 3 minutes of silence, which will end with the sound of a bell. And we're going to hear some music for meditation from Benjie and Andrew. That will continue the meditative mood. So again, let's each do what we need to do to get comfortable. Adjust your position as you need to. You might want to get your feet flat on the floor to ground and steady yourself. The words, they're just an offering. Feel free to use this time to meditate in your own way. People need people to walk to talk to cry and rely on. People will always need people to love and to miss, to hug and to kiss. It's useful to have other people. To whom to moan when you're all alone. It's so hard to share when no one is there. There's not much to do when there's no one but you. People will always need people. To please, to tease, to put you at ease. People will always need people. To make life appealing and give life some meaning. It's useful to have other people. If you need a change, to whom will you turn? If you need a lesson, from whom will you learn? If you need to play, you'll know why I say people will always need people. As girlfriends, as boyfriends, from Bombay to Ostend, people will always need people. To have friendly fights with, to share tasty bites with, it's useful to have other people. People live in families, gangs, posses and packs. It seems we need company before we relax. So stop making enemies and let's face the facts. People will always need people. Yes, people will always need people.
This reading is from Age, Race, Class and Sex, Women Redefining Difference, and it's by Audre Lorde. Racism, ageism, heterosexism, elitism, classism. It is a lifetime pursuit for each of us to extract these distortions from our living at the same time as we recognize, reclaim, and define those differences upon which they are imposed. For we have all been raised in a society where those distortions were endemic within our living. Too often, we pour the energy needed for recognizing and exploring difference into pretending those differences are insurmountable barriers or that they do not exist at all. This results in a voluntary isolation or false and treacherous connections. Either way, we do not develop tools for using human difference as a springboard for creative change within our lives. We speak not of human difference, but of human deviance. Institutionalized rejection of difference is an absolute necessary in a profit economy which needs outsiders as surplus people. As members of such an economy, we have all been programmed to respond to the human differences between us with fear and loathing, and to handle that difference in one of three ways. Ignore it. And if that's not possible, copy it if we think it is dominant, or destroy it if we think it is subordinate. But we have no patterns for relating across our human differences as equals. As a result, those differences have been misnamed and misused in the service of separation and confusion.
Hell is other people. So who's familiar with that expression? And for those that know it, what does it mean to you? Well, have you ever had those days when you just crave solitude? When you want to be alone? And how do you feel when you can't get that? When the whole world seems to be imposing on you, pressing up against your precious time? It can be frustrating, right? We see this every morning when we drive my son to school. We see impatient cars filled with angry people who are wildly gesticulating. Get out of my way! Can't you see I'm in a hurry? And I promise that's not us. Well, this is how most people understand the expression. Hell is other people. I think road rage is perhaps the most apt metaphor. Get out of my way. Well, the expression comes from the French philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. It occurs in his play No Exit, which brings together three people in hell. But hell in this case is a single room, one which they can't leave, hence the title. And the play explores the relationships as they live in this environment. Despite the widespread use of the phrase, Sartre actually meant something different than how we interpret it. His meaning was that in our relationships with other people, their existence serves as a certain judgment in our minds. Knowing that they are there and they are able to judge us, we subsequently judge ourselves. One way it's described is that they provide the measurements, the tools, by which we judge ourselves. Thus, knowing there is someone else who can watch us serves to bring us into our own hell. Hell is other people. Not the frustration of their presence, but the self-awareness they bring out in us. This, of course, does not negate that acquired meaning. Sartre and the cynic can both be right. We need alone time. And at those points, encounters with other people, yes, might feel like hell. Let's consider this an occasional interpretation. But in this case, the long-standing perennial view belongs to the author, that we fashion our own hell by thinking that we are being judged by other people, and consequently, we judge ourselves. 7 years before Sartre penned No Exit, a German theologian was grappling with the question of relationship, and I think he drew similar conclusions in a way. Martin Buber's seminal work, I and Thou, was published in 1937, and its dense, mystic prose presents relationships as simple in their complexity. We have seen the capacity to view other people in two ways, as an it, as an object partial for use by us, bounded by its qualities, or as a thou, full and whole, self-actualizing, filled with multitudes. The it is limited, the thou limitless. The it is temporary, the thou eternal. The it is objectified, the thou transcends classification. But more importantly than simply stating how we view others, Buber reveals that our perception of others naturally shades our perception of ourselves. Through a thou, a person becomes I. The way I read this is that when we accept and recognize the fullness of the person across the table from us, when we see them as holy and with multitudes and beyond any of the earthly constraints that hold them, when we see their soul in effect, then we are transformed. We recognize our holiness, our multitudes. We become boundless, and our soul is recognized. Through a thou, a person becomes I. When I see you, truly see you, I become whole. I see myself as holy and sacred. Buber perhaps could have said, heaven is other people. When we encounter another person and do not judge them, then perhaps we stop judging ourselves. Which is not an easy task, mind you. If there is something more challenging than reading Buber, it is living up to this view. We so easily fail to see the person in front of us. We see their gender, their race, the economic disposition. We see their age. We see them as stereotypes, as different, as unobtainably different. Decades after Buber and Sartre explored this coin by its two different sides, Audre Lorde was calling for a recognition of difference, but not in a way that would produce hell. Rather, her work in the liberation movements of the 1970s was to create better coalitions for building heaven on earth. She sought to give a voice to the marginalized of the marginalized. The world she was seeing renewed efforts to advance civil rights, women's rights, and gay rights. And as a black lesbian, she was uniquely poised to witness the exclusion inherent in each movement. She saw each one acting in its own silo. Her talks and essays are filled with a prescient understanding of the need to recognize difference. Her perhaps most famous phrase, "The master's tools will not dismantle the master's house," was a call for white feminists to recognize that their racial bias aided the patriarchy. We may now refer to this as intersectionality, the recognition that oppression is meted out differently depending on differing identities that people hold. But she was talking about this decades before the term was coined. Our reading looked at a talk she gave on differences within the feminist movement of her day. Our society presents three ways of dealing with difference. Firstly, to ignore it. Well, I don't see color, some say. There, racism is solved. That may sound glib, but how often do we try to just gloss over challenging conversations? If you can't ignore it, then you have a choice. If you are marginalized, then you can copy the difference. You can try to emulate it and fit in. You can be the good person, the tribute to your race, to your gender, or your age. Or, if you are the dominant party, you may want to destroy the difference, preserve the status quo. In each of these instances, of course, people's inherent being is denied. They are limited. Buber would say that we have created an I-it relationship. It may feel strange discussing this here. We celebrate difference. Here, people can be fully themselves. That's what we say. I'm sure all of our relationships are as full and meaningful as the I-thou relationship. All the time. Are they, though? I know my interactions can be less than full at times, and I hope with reflection and effort I can better tend to these community needs and hear the person speaking to me. Lord argues that difference can be recognized without tearing coalitions apart. It takes patience and strength, the ability to listen fully and honestly, to subject one's self to scrutiny, to trust the person describing their experience. Like Buber, beautiful words, but a tall order. To fail to do this, however, limits the strength and power of marginalized groups, essentially doing the work of the oppressor for them. So it is all the more important that we explore and work towards being ever more supportive of the oppressed, a place for all marginalized people to speak. I suppose the jury is still out whether hell is other people, that we can remain judgmental with the added sorrow of judging ourselves. Or perhaps the jury will return proclaiming people to be capable of the I-thou relationship, honoring the divine in one another. In any event, if we are to create this just and beautiful world, we will have to do it with many hands, many different hands. That can be a challenge, holding the hand of a stranger, but it can also be a blessing. May it be so.
Thanks, Cody. One more hymn then, an old favourite, number 70 in your purple books. I Wish I Knew How. The words will be up on screen. Do sing along because this is a good one. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free. So just a few announcements now. Thanks again to Cody for being our guest preacher today. Thanks to Janine for tech hosting. Thanks to Patricia for reading, a tricky reading, well done. Thanks to Benjie and Andrew for lovely music. For those of you who are here in person, please do hang around for a cuppa and a chat afterwards, served in the hall next door. This week there is coffee and walnut cake at Brian's request. If you're online, do hang around for a chat with Maria. I want to give a particular shout out to Maria today, not just because it's her birthday tomorrow. Maria has now moved house to somewhere that's got another Unitarian church right on her doorstep. So she's stepping down from the volunteer team and from our board of trustees here at Essex Church in order to join her local church in Brighton. So thanks, Maria. Many thanks for all you've done. Thanks for all the help you've given during this time of transition, and all the best for the future. I hope we'll still get to see you from time to time online at our occasional retreats and so forth. I know you're doing an encore to help us out next week, and this won't be your final Sunday with us, but this is my final Sunday in the pulpit with you, so thanks again. After the service today at noon, if you're here in person, why not hang around and sing some more? Margaret is running her Finding Your Voice singing class at 12 o'clock. Even if you think you can't sing, she can help. That's free of charge, 45 minutes, meeting at noon. We've got various small group activities that go on. Heart and Soul is having a week off this week because I and the others are involved in Hucklow Summer School one way or another. If you want to join in with the Summer School daily services, they're going to be put up online each day, probably appear about tea time each day. There's a link to that in the Friday email. I'm going to be dashing off quite quickly after the service today because I've got to run the workshop for summer school starting at 2 o'clock, so excuse my quick exit. In a fortnight's time, on the 3rd of September, we're going to be having our Gathering the Waters service. This is our traditional regathering after the summer months. If you've been gallivanting or are going to gallivant at any time in the next week or so, do bring back some water with you from wherever you've been, or you can always just bring some from your tap. It's the symbolism that counts. We were thinking of having a bring and share lunch on that day. Nobody's come forward to run it and organise, so this is your last chance. If you want that to happen, let me know today. Otherwise, we'll quietly forget about the idea and try again later in the autumn. We're going to be back next Sunday when Janine will be leading the service with guest preacher Sheena Gabriel. Details of that and all the other activities are on the back of your order of service on the Friday email. The congregation very much has a life beyond Sunday mornings. We encourage you to keep in touch, look after each other, and nurture supportive connections as best you can. I think that's everything. Just time for our closing words and closing music. With faith in the creative powers of life, with hope for the future of life in this world, with love for all others who share this life with us, let us go forward together in peace to seek justice. Our gathering has ended. Let our service begin. May it be so for the greater good of all. Amen.